Okay, so this is my first attempt at doing a little video overview of what I've done for my King Joseph command group at the behest of Paul Alba. Thank you, Paul, for your inspiration and encouragement to do something like this. I know you've been doing it for a while, but I'm right at the bottom of the learning curve here, so I'm going to try and make this as interesting and useful as possible. It will get better. I'm not sure about the lighting on this at the moment, but I'll see whether I can do some improvements as we go. Okay, so if you've seen the blog post, you'll know exactly who's in this command group and the figures I've selected. So we've got King Joseph there at the front on his white charger. To his left is Marshal Jourdan, and to his right is an officer from the Spanish Guard Hussars. At the back we have two Imperial ADCs for a Commander-in-Chief. They have the white and red tipped plumes and white brassards. And slightly over to the other side, not too visible here, is another Spanish Guard Hussar NCO, who's also acting as a Commander-in-Chief ADC. He too has a white brassard, as you'll see. So if we have a look around the group, I've already outlined the basics of what I did with Joseph. And he is he's a French colonel who's had a head transplant, so we put a marshal's head on that uniform. I wanted to try and get him looking as if he was a colonel of the Spanish Imperial Guard, his own personal guard, similar to the French Imperial Grenadier Guards that Napoleon had in his own personal entourage. But they had, as far as I can tell, buff facings. There are conflicting sources on this, but as you'll see from the portraits on the blog post, that he's illustrated with this buff kind of facing, so I decided to go with it. Okay, so there you can see on the side there the NCO of the Spanish Guard Hussars with his white brassard on his red tunic there, with with the gold trimming. Okay, so what I thought might be useful would be to just go through some of the colours that I've used for this group, and I guess let's look at first the colours for the men, particularly the general staff. So I tend to use Prussian blue as my base coat colour. It's a lovely, really deep, dark blue colour, and it acts as a really good base, I find. To which I highlight it with Prussian blue, and then I take that up a notch to bring out extra highlight with a buff Prussian blue. I've looked at multiple pictures of and seen the actual uniforms in museums. It's always very difficult to judge a colour, particularly on smaller figures, and I guess you have to allow for the fact that in Spanish light, which is a very bright sunny climate, colours are going to seem even more vibrant. So I've tended towards a more lighter version of any uniform colour because of that aspect. And then something I tried out for this particular group was based on Rafa's great book on painting French troops, which I've highlighted on the blog. You can read a post on my review on that. Rafa's painting guide for Napoleonic troops, French Napoleonic troops, and he goes through using yellow ochre on a beige brown base. So beige brown base with a yellow ochre for the gold work on the saddle cloths and the epaulets and the braid around the tops of the bicorns, and even to some extent I've done it for the metalwork on the sabre scabbards. So beige brown as a base coat, yellow ochre on top. You can I have sort of highlighted that bit with a 50-50 mix of yellow ochre and flat yellow as well, which brings it up even more vibrantly. And then I finish off with Vallejo gold to highlight on top of that. So that's what you're seeing on that, on those saddle cloths and on the bling, if you like. Let's see if we can bring that a little bit closer without it going too blurred. It's going to focus in there. Yeah, okay, so there you can see on the sabre scabbard there, and on the Marshal Jourdan and the Spanish Hussar. Look, can you see all the gold work there? That is using that combination, which I was really pleased with, so thank you, Rafa. A really great idea. I've never really done it that way. I've usually gone for a dark German camo, dark brown with gold work and bronze, and then going up to gold, and it's not as vibrant as doing it this way, which I was really pleased with. So that's looking at the men themselves. Ooh, let's put that back. See, I told you it's going to get better. And then I've had a lot of questions about the horse colours. So what I tend to use for my horse colours is I work with the coat d'armes basic horse tones. There you can see bay, dun, roan, horse tone brown. The grey I found particularly, that's what I used for Joseph's mount, and the chestnuts. So those are my base colours. I tend to apply that straight onto the model horse and then give them a wash with the Citadel Agrax Earth shade. I'm liberal with that. I like to get the muscles well defined with the wash, and then I go back over that colour with the colour again to pull out the muscle groupings, and obviously the Agrax Earth shade will darken slightly the base colour, so you've already got a darker base that you can highlight with the actual colour itself. And it seems to come up quite nicely, and you get quite a good graduation. With the whites, I'm using the horse grey tone, and I'm going over with the Newland oil, I think it is, wash, so the black wash effectively. And then I'll either decide to go over with the grey again, if I'm working as a grey, or I will go over with an off-white, and in the case of Joseph I dappled that off-white effect, which is discernible in the pictures. I'm hoping you can see, if I bring that in a bit closer, you can see the slight dappling effect there on the rump of his charger. The other thing I tend to do now that I've taken from Rafa's painting guide, which I hadn't done an awful lot of, or hadn't done very successfully in the past, is the fleshy parts to the muzzle that you often see with whites and greys. I really like that effect, and I do it quite a bit. That's with, well, what I should say is get the book, and you'll find all the colour combinations in there. I haven't done anything that Rafa hasn't beautifully illustrated with his own guide. You see how this stuff gets passed around and people share ideas. So Paul's given me this idea about videoing, sharing some of his principles, and there's nothing new out there. We all learn from each other. So that's it pretty much. The other aspects in terms of the basing, there is a basing guide on the blog post, so you can find out how I do my bases. I've added a few little extras since I've gone on. I'm always looking to try and develop what I do, so you can see there's some extra grass tufts in amongst that lot, plus some little flower clusters as well. I don't tend to do that on my troops, mainly because I like to use them to highlight specific bases, and so command groups stand out better from the ordinary troop bases with these extra additions to their bases, I find. So yeah, it's just a personal choice. So there we are. I hope you find that useful, and I don't intend to do one of these before Christmas, so here's wishing everyone a very happy Christmas and lots of stuff coming in the new year. If you find this useful, please refer to my charity appeal for this end of this year and going into 2017, which is all in Talavera 208 in support of combat stress. We are building up to the big Talavera game where these chaps will be featured, and if you find the blog useful and you like what we're doing, it'd be really great if you could support the charity appeal with any monies you care to put in the pot. It's going to be running all of next year, so it'd be great to really get a good pot together and show what the wargaming community can do to support a great healthcare charity. Thank you.